more yeses. It looks like we've only got a few people. We have a total so far of 27 votes, and it looks like just about 3 or 4 people are saying yes. The majority are saying undecided. We have 24% saying, who is Dana Smithers? So that's a good thing. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to go over the case, catch everybody up, and then maybe you'll have a different opinion by the end of this video. Good to see you, everybody. I'm going to go through really quick and just say hi. Harlot, Caroline, Let. Sorry if I say these names wrong. HK, Cece, Claire. Good to see everybody. Marion, Honey Badger, LH. Appreciate y'all being here. CA Cola, welcome. Hey, John. Nina, Karen. So, we all thought we were going to be sitting here, waiting until October to hear something new on the case. And then out of the blue, we find out that Bryan's parents are being subpoenaed in Pennsylvania. And according to sources, now these are unknown sources, right? But according to sources, it's in relation to the Dana Smithers case. Hey, Bradley, Sharpie, Shirley, Chiricos. I know I'm butchering some of these names. So we found out this new information, and just when we thought it was going to quiet down, this is kind of like the case that just keeps on giving. There's surprises around every corner with Bryan Kohberger. So it's interesting. I'm really anxious now to hear what this subpoena is about. So there's a couple of options. I think the most likely option is kind of what we're hearing about. Even though it's unnamed sources, it does make sense that it would have been a crime that occurred in Monroe County, and so it could be connected to Dana Smithers, but it could also be connected to something with the Idaho 4 case, maybe that occurred in Pennsylvania. So I did want to kind of get people's thoughts on that. And what I'm thinking is, could Bryan have maybe been disposing of evidence in Pennsylvania, and or could there have been something going on, in relation to the Idaho 4 case that they would be subpoenaing them in Pennsylvania? I'm getting an error here on my YouTube, so just somebody in the chat let me know if you do lose me or anything, but it seems to be okay right now. So yeah, so it could be either. We don't know yet. So let's look at it a little closer and then share your thoughts. So right now, it does appear that most people are undecided. A lot of us don't know who Dana Smithers is. And then about 20% of us feel like Bryan is involved in this case. So let's take a look here and just go over what's going on recently that we've heard about. So essentially, Bryan was called to testify before a grand jury in Pennsylvania. And again, this is an unnamed source saying over the case of a woman who vanished in the same county where he lived in 2022. So this was May of 2022 when Dana Smithers vanished. They just recently found her remains. So they just found her remains here, I want to say I think it was like April 28th, and then it was like May 1st they identified her remains. So she had been out on May 28th. This was Memorial Day weekend in 2022, and she was out with her I think it's her ex-husband and the father of her children, and they kind of went out to a bar, kind of a brewery restaurant bar type place, and then they went to this kind of festival right in the area where they live, and I'll show you a map of where this all happened. But they went out that night. Afterward, she went home, and she went over to her friend's house just a few doors down from where she lives, visited with her friend, went out to go home at about 11 o'clock at night. She's on camera leaving the house, and then that's the last we've seen of her. So a year goes by, and we just now recently learned that they've found her. They found her in Monroe County, just right near where she lives and where she disappeared. So if you hear me pause, I might just be looking at the chat here. So I don't want to miss anything, and try to keep up on it here and then on my phone. But sometimes my phone will freeze up, so I like to jump over and just make sure things are flowing here. Okay, so what happened now is Bryan's parents are being subpoenaed, and rumor is it's in relation to this case. So one thing to clarify here is I've learned that there are two types of grand juries in Pennsylvania. You have the investigative grand jury, and I'm not sure, I can't remember what the name is, but you have the regular grand jury, right, that indicts somebody. So what that means is for example, what happened to Bryan in Idaho is the prosecutor presented all of the evidence to the grand jury, and they determined it was enough evidence to send it to trial right away without having to do the preliminary hearing. So that's your normal, typical grand jury. In Pennsylvania, they have also what's called an investigative grand jury, and so they'll actually be involved in investigations on cases. So it's not something where, the prosecutor necessarily is coming forward and saying, hey, we have this evidence showing Bryan did this, and we want you to interview his parents about this. It could just be that they're eliminating people, and it would make sense that if they're investigating the case, and here we have a woman who's been missing for a year, and then she turns up in Monroe County, just 30 miles away from where Bryan lived, or where Bryan's parents' house is, that it would make sense to look into this case, right? They just figured that, okay, here she is, okay, we've got to eliminate people. And there has been talk about Bryan being connected to the case, so I'm sure word has gotten around. Obviously, law enforcement is going to be aware that Bryan would be a suspect in that case. And so this could just be the investigative grand jury investigating. And it would make sense, common sense, say, hey, we've got to investigate. And so the word here is that Bryan has an alibi for May 28th. So it's possible that Bryan's parents could be part of Bryan's alibi. It's been reported that, quote unquote, Bryan has a solid alibi. So to me, a solid alibi means somebody else vouching for you. That's a pretty good alibi, right? Unless you're on camera. It doesn't get much better than being on camera somewhere else, but that's possible. But a solid alibi could be Bryan's parents saying, yeah, he was home with us, or he was out with us, or he was at our house that night. So they might be interviewing his parents to make sure that that's legit. So word is that Bryan's mom has already testified, and Bryan's dad will be testifying before the grand jury tomorrow. And I've also heard that the coroner will be releasing information tomorrow. I don't know if that's for sure or not, but I did hear that is a possibility, that we might hear more from the coroner regarding cause of death, for example. So I'm going to pause here for just a moment. I want to read a few comments and answer those. Hang in there while I figure out this streaming piece here. So let me back up a sec. Yeah, so Harlot, yeah, agree. Yeah, Bryan Enton is the one reporting that it is connected. The thing is they always say sources, so we just don't know. We've heard, I've heard things from News Nation source-wise that turned out to be legit, and I've heard stuff that wasn't. So I'm leaning that it's probably something to do there with them investigating, but I'm still kind of reserving full judgment. I do think there's a possibility it could be something else, but anytime I just hear sources, unnamed sources, until I see some sort of document, it's hard to fully, know unless they cite where it's coming from. But I agree, yeah. I think it does make sense, right? It's the same county. They just found her. There's been talk about a connection in the past. You would think they're going to be looking at this and eliminating suspects at the very least. So DS, you have a great question here. DS says, did he have her ID? So I do want to show everybody that I don't think he did. I don't think it's the ID that we've been talking about that they may have found. So I did come across something where Dana Smithers' sister had mentioned that. So just kind of a quote here, and there's another thing I wanted to point out here in this quote from her sister, but Dana Smithers was known for her boisterous personality. She was labeled as the loudest person in the room. She was described as being a devoted mother and friend, inspiring her wide social circle, and apparently she was very outgoing and friendly. This is also how Xana has been described. I don't know if any of you have come across articles from people who were talking about Xana, but Xana was also described as the life of the party. So I'm going to kind of throw out some things that maybe support Bryan being involved, but there's also a few things I want to mention that kind of, I think, don't make sense, with Bryan being involved. But this is one that I think is kind of interesting, that she's known to be the life of the party, essentially, just like Xana was kind of mentioned as being the life of the party. So if you're talking about maybe something that's causing Bryan to target somebody, we haven't talked much about Xana potentially being a target in the case, but if you're looking for similarities between victims, you have two people here who have a similar personality. They actually, in my opinion, have a similar look. This is also something I just wanted to point out. I point out a lot of things here just that I notice. Please put in the comments if you think I'm crazy. Xana is also. Here, let me just find a picture of Xana real quick, and you'll see what I mean. They look very similar, in my opinion. So let's pull this right here. Oop. Come on. Sorry, I'm going to try to get this picture side by side for you. So if you look at this picture of Xana and then compare that to... there's a better picture of her. I'm sorry. Where did that picture just go? There it is. So let's do this. Xana. Gosh, I don't know how this stupid thing works. You see what I'm saying there. You can see the kind of the similarity in there. So we have two people who look similar and have a similar personality. If you're talking about maybe a connection between victims, let me know. What do you? Am I crazy? Do they not? I mean, she almost looks like an older version of Xana. I don't know. Put a 1 if you think it's similar. Put a 2 if I'm like, no. I just kind of, when you're looking at the case, I noticed the two of them. But, so. Pretty balanced. Even kind of looks similar, but maybe not. And I think I'm kind of leaning like, hey, let's, if we're looking for things, that might make sense as far as an MO goes and similarities. But, so, Okay, so again, Dana Smithers, she's a mom. She was out that weekend. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, um, she also has an ex husband or spouse, the father of her kids, and it's been said that they get along. I haven't found anything though on the guy. I don't know his name. Does anybody know his name? Not that you have to put it in the comments, but let me know if you know his name. I've been trying to figure out, because if we're gonna try to look at Bryan as being connected to Dana Smithers, I think we have to look at the other people that are surrounding her, and that one's a mystery also. I haven't heard anything about him. Now I did read somewhere that Dana does have a couple of things on her criminal record, and one of those things I believe was a domestic violence type of situation, and that's kind of what piqued my interest more in her ex, because I'd like to know who he is and what is his background. I haven't found anything on who that is though, so please let me know if anybody does know anything about that. I think he definitely would have to be looked at as well. Yeah, HK, I mean, we definitely have differences in the age when you compare the victims from the Idaho 4 to the others, for sure. And so until we know what his real motive is, there could be something triggering him that we don't know. But that's definitely a difference. That's a good point. Yeah, JB's. When we look at the map here in just a moment, you'll see that the location of this is right here, Lambsden Drive, where Bryan lives, and this is the location, the area where the murder occurred, or where Dana went missing. And it's almost an identical map of, if you're looking at Pullman, Washington to Idaho 4, you could overlay the two. Yeah, Bradley says you would think that the police would have looked into the ex-boyfriend, but we haven't heard, right? This is a tricky one. There's not a whole lot out there. It's kind of like a cold case. They haven't really, at least from what I've found so far. I haven't found his name yet, and I just haven't found any official documents, that are out there to support anything. But I would hope that they're looking at him. They might be looking at him. Maybe, and you could go as far as saying they want to eliminate Bryan, and because maybe that other guy is on the radar. And I read somewhere that the local word on the street is that he is somewhat of a suspect. I just don't know for sure. I don't know who he is. Yeah, so Angel, that's another case. That's the I believe it's the Irma. I think Irma Bailey, or Irma Baylor. Yeah, when that would have been earlier on. But they do resemble. Yeah, there's a lot of cases out there right now, with victims that kind of fit that age range, from these people that we've been discussing. When you look at those, a lot of unsolved cases. Maybe they're just, I don't know, maybe they just get a little more attention obviously because of Bryan. They're going to get more attention, right? Right, it could go either way, I think, Bradley. So Bradley said, maybe they're basically trying to eliminate Bryan to solidify their case against her ex. Think maybe her ex, if he were being charged, he might be saying, oh wait, it was Bryan Kohberger, the guy lived 30 miles away, he just did this in Idaho, it was him. Who knows? But we don't know. It's going to be interesting to hear what the real reason is behind the subpoena, and if it is related to the case, hopefully we will find out here. But let's look a little closer at the Dana Smithers case for those who aren't aware of what's going on here. So again, real quick, Bryan's dad is going to supposedly testify in court tomorrow, and his mom, Marianne, has already given her testimony. So it's noted here, though, and this is kind of what I was saying, how, could it be connected to something else? Because it says the transcripts from the closed session may be transferred to Idaho, where their son is expected to go to trial on October 2nd. And I have heard that typically, a grand jury is secretive. They don't release it. But I have heard that in some cases in federal, it's something big like this, they could file a motion, to see the information. But so if it were connected to the Idaho 4, there is a slight possibility it could be in relation to that case in some way. Like I said, is it possible that maybe, Bryan was disposing of evidence, or his parents noticed something? I don't know if they would have to subpoena them in Pennsylvania because it occurred in Pennsylvania. So if Bryan's dad was with Bryan and they stopped at the car wash and Bryan took out a trash bag and threw it in the garbage or something like that, and it happened in Pennsylvania, would they have to subpoena him in Pennsylvania? Does anybody know? Oh, I forgot, everybody, about the ID. So I moved on from that. Let me back up. So regarding the ID, so her sister did say, so essentially what happened was Dana was out. She went to her friends about 11 p.m. They hung out. Then Dana walked home 3 houses down. She's on camera leaving. She puts her phone, you can see her on camera, putting her phone in her pocket. She goes home, and then she disappears. Well, they found her phone and her wallet at the house. And then her sister is quoted here saying, where is it here? She says, right here, she says, she has a 6-year-old daughter. She's not been seen or heard in months. She left her purse, her wallet, her phone, and her keys. So we know that when she left her friend's house 3 doors down, she got home. Her stuff's at her house. So she was either abducted or attacked in her house. Maybe somebody lying in wait inside the house, or maybe somebody came to the door right after she arrived, watched her walk in the front door, came up right behind her. Could have been somebody she knows, right? Hey, turns around, steps outside to talk to the person, leaves her stuff in the house, and then something happens, But her sister says here she has no ID. This isn't somebody everybody thinks ran away. You don't run away without your ID. So she says it twice. There's nothing on her. She has no ID. So that tells me that I think they have her ID. They found her ID in her wallet. I don't know for sure. I don't know, but you would, unless the sister doesn't know. Now we do know law enforcement doesn't share information. That could be a key piece of information that they're not releasing. And this could just be the sister assuming that because they have her wallet, they have her ID. But maybe that's Bryan's thing. Does Bryan like to take IDs as his trophy? So I'm not sure if it's the ID, but I did come across this. I wanted to share that with everybody. I did think that was an interesting comment made by the sister, because I did see a lot of people mentioning that, like, oh, maybe it's about the ID. All right. Nalas, I like this question because I'm curious about this as well. So Nalas Encounters says, I'm curious as to how many think Bryan's dad knows a little more than telling. I think, I wonder too. We don't have a whole lot of insight about how close they were, but even if they weren't super close, I wonder what Dad might have just witnessed on the trip, sitting in the passenger seat and observing, and maybe, like I said, maybe he saw Bryan dispose of something. Maybe he had a conversation. Bryan could have confided if they were close. The note to Bryan that I've mentioned, I wonder, it could be a note written to Dad, or could it have even been a note left behind in case they did do something to Bryan, arrest Bryan or whatever, so that he could explain to his dad, or, who knows. But most people, I think are leaning that they must have known something was off at least, yeah. HK is doing a patrol. Right on. Caroline thinks Bryan may have been adopted. LH thinks the dad knows something. Yeah, so Julie, I did come across that as well. It says, apparently, this is what, again, we don't know for sure, but they found 2 IDs is what we've heard. And we've heard that they don't belong to the Idaho 4, but I've also heard here and there that they could have, that they did. I think we heard initially that it was one of the victims' IDs. But it did say IDs in a glove in a box. So that's super strange, right? Who keeps IDs in a glove in a box? Unless that's some sort of weird typo that they wrote down, but I don't know. How do you write that? I've heard somebody say maybe it says IDs in a glove box, but it's clearly written IDs in a glove in a box, spread out across the line. Yeah, he does kind of look like his sisters. Yep, so they did, they matched the DNA with Dad. So Dad's connected in some way. And that's part of my, in the back of my mind, I wonder, did somebody in his family maybe come forward? Because they were talking about, the prosecution was really defensive about the genealogy information that they were giving up. And at one point, one of the Idaho codes that they mentioned, it was talking about protecting an informant. And so I don't know. There's recently been talk about a sister who was suspicious of Bryan. So something maybe was going on there. But in the back of my mind, I wonder, did maybe Mom or Dad know something and even contact law enforcement? 51 terabytes, Brenda says, yeah, that's a lot of data. Yeah, Bradley, I've been thinking about that too, is that break-in that occurred near 1122. Could he have been involved in committing some other types of crimes? Mm-hmm. And then there's that connection to the acquaintance of his that we're hearing about. And Bradley, you might mention, I think you were on that live, that members only live that we did, where we were talking about the possibility that Bryan has a connection to technology and a pretty solid understanding of that. So I do think that Bryan would be very capable of utilizing technology for stalking in different ways, whether it's hacking into somebody's Wi-Fi, watching them on camera, things like that. Getting into accounts even. Yeah, so Lil Nuggles says he didn't relocate to WSU until July, and this incident with danasmithers occurred. This happened in May, right? So he moved right after, and that's another connection, with the Idaho 4. That crime occurred right about a month after the year was wrapping up at WSU, and Bryan would have been taken off. So let's take a look a little bit closer here at this case. What happened was, this is a far out view of the area, and right over here on the right is where everything kind of happened that night. So on the night that she went missing, she was out at the Happy Hour Bar and Grill, and she was with her ex and her kids, I believe. At some point she was with her kids at this kind of like a festival that was going on. So you can see here the location. Let me let this load. Right here, so we have kind of a residential, houses here, and then we have this Happy Hour Bar and Grill that's right on the edge of all the homes. And I don't know the exact address, but Dana Smithers lived right here. Pretty sure it's on the corner of Bryant and Stokes Avenue, in this kind of this little square. And her friend was just about 3 houses down from where she lives here. Yeah, Bradley. Yeah, he wouldn't even have had to have hacked into the Wi-Fi. He was helping her and pretty much set it up for her. So yeah, he would have easily been able to do that. But I think he would have had an interest in that, right? And not only doing that, but I think he was knowledgeable and maybe even knew about other ways to spy on people. Just it's based off of just some of like those Instagram account connections early on in the case that I had been talking about. There were some that led to somebody who'd be interested in that kind of stuff. There's something out there called a flipper, where, for example, somebody can sit outside your house with what's called a flipper, and they can turn it on, and when you go to log into your Wi-Fi, they can mirror your Wi-Fi. So when you think you're clicking on your Wi-Fi, you're clicking on their fake Wi-Fi, and then once you do that, they have access to all of your stuff in your house on your devices. So there's very simple devices out there that people like Bryan, who would be into stalking people, I think would have knowledge about and at least know existed and have an interest in. So that's kind of my angle on that. I do think Bryan, my point is, I do think he definitely has the ability to use technology to do the stalking and things like that. We don't know yet, Kathy, if she's vegan. That's a good question. I haven't heard anything that she is, but that's something we'll have to keep our ears open for. Yeah, he hoped he knew, maybe. Just hoping that maybe those rural areas... Bradley, you just made me think of a good point. In that traffic stop where we heard Bryan, he mentions to the police officer, "Oh, I'm from a rural area. We don't have crosswalks," and he kind of tells her that whole story. And then if you look at the Idaho 4 route that he took that rural area that he was comfortable being in, right? Probably felt like it was, less cameras, like what you're saying, I think. Yeah, I think he was very knowledgeable in data collection. Agree. So here's the neighborhood where she went missing. Okay, so they were out just over here, right at this this location right here. Where'd it go? Right here, the Happy Hour Bar and Grill. It's a nice, place. It's like a nice restaurant. It's not, it's not like a dive or anything like that. It's a nice, kind of up, not, super, fancy, but it's a nicer place. So they're hanging out there, and it's reported that they were being really friendly and kind of going around talking and dancing with people, both of them. So having a good time, and being really friendly with people. So, if you think about, okay, how could they have encountered each other? And if we talk about things that fit Bryan, in my opinion, and how he could be crossing paths with people, is him being out and about and targeting people when he's, going out and just looking for whoever for whatever reason. But they're at a restaurant here, right? And, they could have crossed paths there. The other thing about Dana is, she does have a history. They've reported that she had some prior drug use, like Bryan. So that's kind of another outside connection, right, that they would have in common. So if they did cross paths and there was something like that going on, it could be a potential connection. I'm not saying it is, but it's just, you know, that is another, if you're looking at things that are similar, and you know why Bryan maybe is involved. So she's just right over here, you know, Bryant and Stokes Avenue. You know, here's the bar and grill. It's walking distance. It's just 3 blocks. And so they're hanging out. And she was drinking. We don't know if she was super intoxicated. From what I've read, maybe a little bit. You know, I don't know for sure, though. She doesn't look like it is in the video when she's leaving her friend's house. You know, and she had her kids and things like that. So I don't think she was, you know, plastered or anything based off of the video of her walking away. Yeah, Bradley, I hope it's public record soon what's going on in Pennsylvania. But that would also support it being connected to this case and not the Idaho 4 case with all of the gag order stuff going on. So Dana's at the happy hour bar and grill. She heads back down, you know, she walks home right over here into this neighborhood, and then she just goes a few houses down where her friend lives right around 11 p.m., spends a short amount of time kind of just chit-chatting with her, invites her friend to come over to her house and hang out. Her friend says no, she's tired, and then she leaves the house. So let's take a look at the video of her leaving the house here. So this is the last known footage of Dana Smithers. Again, this is just 3 houses away from where she lives herself. And everybody, I know what you're thinking. I've already looked. Bryan is not hiding in the bushes somewhere. So, just kidding. Okay, so it's a really quick video. It's just her walking away. I'll play it again here. One more time. Nothing too unusual, but again, it's the last footage of her. It's about 11. Can't really read that, but I read it was about 11:05 p.m. Her phone's in her left hand. So her phone was found at her house, so you know, everybody figures that she made it home. Play that one more time for everyone. So this would have been what she was wearing when she was last seen. They may have found her clothing. I don't know if it's been reported. Did they find her clothed or not? I haven't found anything that really details anything. They haven't released anything. Yeah, the car is a white car. It was Bryan. Yeah, so there she goes. So unfortunately, that was the last that they had seen of her. So this happened just right here in this neighborhood. So I'm assuming she was probably just walking out and making a left. And then they found her body right here. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure from looking at the footage where they were recovering, they found her right in this kind of like circle of trees where you get onto the highway here. So here's the happy hour bar and grill. I believe she was found just right in here. I'll double check that, but the footage looked like they were walking out, you know, kind of like right in this area. and it's described as being at the intersection of Park Avenue and Interstate 80 or Highway 80, and it's on the eastbound entry getting on. So that's what this would be right here. This loop right here is getting onto the highway going eastbound. So it all occurred kind of right in this area here. I mean, what, maybe 8-block area from where she lives to where they found her. So it is a pretty rural area. Outside of this neighborhood, there's this whole nature area. It looks like it's called Glen Park, and it's right near a trailhead. We do know that Bryan likes hiking. We know they recovered boots from his home in Pennsylvania, multiple pairs of boots. Of course, it's probably related to the Idaho case, but could there be boot prints near where her body was found? But we see kind of this nature area near the neighborhood. And then who's got the keen eye here? Somebody's got to notice this. Let me see if I can zoom in. Who's got the big screen going? Well, we all know Bryan likes Thai food, but there's actually a Thai restaurant right here. So again, if you're just looking for connections, you see, we know Bryan likes to hike, and he's on record with law enforcement calling the police because he was locked into a park similar to this park. Not this park. It was in another county, but he is known to be hanging out in parks like this. You have to look at things that we know about him. He is on record. He called law enforcement and said, hey, they shut the gate on me. I'm in the park. I can't get out. And they came out and got him out. And then I believe he even wrote them a letter, kind of like he wrote a letter in Pullman about the job. He actually wrote a letter about law enforcement coming to help him get out of the park, and apologized for wasting their time at one point. So you're talking about things that would draw Bryan to the area potentially. You got a Thai restaurant there. You got a hiking area here, pretty rural, where Bryan's comfortable. We have a restaurant here. We know Bryan likes to hang out at these types of establishments. It's been reported that he goes to these types of brewery establishments. Again, I'm weighing both sides here. This is the argument that could it be connected to Bryan? Now, it doesn't fit Bryan that she's found here away from her home. If you look at the other case or cases, the victims are all found inside the house. So this would be the one case, well, I guess aside from Catherine Janis, where she was in the park. But this would be the one case where somebody was taken from the home outside. So that would be different or unique, because we know she got home. Her stuff is at her phone, her keys, her wallet. The phone being the main thing. They can track the phone as well. So we know that she got home. Welcome back, HK. So then, Bryan, he lives about 30 miles away from this location here. So, he's in the area. It fits some of his interests. Another thing, though, that I think is worth noting, look at how close Pennsylvania, this is the Pennsylvania-New Jersey line right here on the right. So the body was found here near the eastbound I-80 entrance. So if somebody were leaving the area, so if somebody had abducted Dana and had her in their car and then were leaving and stopped to drop her here and then were getting on I-80, they'd be heading east. So whoever put her there most likely had to head east, at least for some period of time. But the fact that she's found off of the eastbound I-80 on-ramp, and then you see the New Jersey state line over here right across from Pennsylvania, it's possible that whoever did this, if it was not Bryan, could have even been from over there from across the line in New Jersey area down, and was heading back east. If they had come over this way to commit a crime, I just noticed that there's, you have that whole Pennsylvania, New Jersey line just right there, really close. And so that kind of just opens another thought, and that she's found on the eastbound. She's not found on the westbound ramp where Bryan's parents' families, where his parents' house is. Yeah, I mean, maybe they found her DNA in his car. So another thing to note is they just found her. Okay, so I believe they just identified her a few weeks ago. So any testing is still kind of pending right now. I don't know how quick all of the results come back, but the coroner is gonna, we're hearing the coroner is gonna release some information tomorrow. But I don't know how long it takes for them to run all of the DNA. We know that they identified her through dental records, and then compare, running it and comparing it to Bryan. But yeah, maybe, maybe they have more. Maybe they do have a connection there, of something that they found, and then maybe Bryan's parents were his alibi, and they're subpoenaing them to question them on it because maybe they have some evidence that's pointing to them lying. So it's an interesting case. More to come. We're going to have to kind of just keep our ears to the ground and see what kind of updates come out. Bryan Enton seems to be the first one to hear stuff, so we'll have to keep an eye on what he's saying, and then validate that. But I'm really curious to figure out who Dana Smithers' ex is, because I think you have to eliminate the people closest to her first before you start saying it's somebody else. Maybe they have, we don't know. I don't even know who it is. Yeah, so HK, that's a great point. We know, when we look at Bryan, you look at knife, using a knife. However, they did recover a Glock firearm from the house in Pennsylvania. So it's not outside the realm that he could have used a firearm for another crime. Maybe they matched a bullet to his firearm. What do you guys think about that idea? If you're talking about DNA or something like that, they have a Glock from the house. They've recovered her remains. Could there have, I'm sure they searched the area where her body was. Could they have recovered maybe a bullet and matched it to the firearm? Yep. Yeah, Shiny, they found the gun there, so we don't know the answers right now, but like I said at the beginning, we thought we were going to be sitting here for 5 months until October hearing about the gag order argument, and then now here we have this going on. So I'm interested to learn more about this. Please, everybody, feel free to email me or shoot me a comment in one of my videos. I do read everybody's comments, so if you learn of anything new on the case, send it my way. A few of you, we talk all the time. I appreciate it. It's really good to see you here in the chat. Yeah, Harley, you make a good point. Shooting is absolutely a big difference, from stabbing, as far as, an MO goes. And I think when we look at Bryan and kind of his drivers and things like that, when you connect him to the case, it seems like a knife would be more fitting. But he's curious too, though. He's curious about different crimes, and having the convenience of a firearm. And if it was, for example, an earlier crime for him and he was nervous, that would be maybe something an inexperienced person might do, and then maybe he was curious about using a knife. just different angles. It's a great point, though. It's way different. Yep. Yeah, Caroline, that's a great point. You have to look at all those angles: money, motive. Hopefully the investigators are doing that. Hopefully they are, eliminating people. Like I mentioned, the ex, who we don't know who he is, but I hope they're looking at him. I hope he's innocent and they've eliminated him and everything's good. He hasn't, I haven't heard I haven't even read, a statement from him. When you'll kind of read articles and it'll say, well, the sister said this and a friend said this. I haven't even read a quote from him that said, oh my gosh, I'm so torn up. I don't know what happened to her. I saw her earlier that night. We were just hanging out and I went home and I woke up in the morning and next thing I know, she was gone. We don't hear anything like that, right? So, yeah, hit the like, everybody, for me if you could. That really helps. That's how YouTube kind of pushes the video out. So it's subscribe if you want. It's cool if you don't. I get it. It's free though. Hit the like, and it really helps all the creators when you do that. So I'll let you know if I find anything new out. I'm going to keep digging, see what else I can find out. I'm going to try to do a lot more lives to get on and just chat with everybody. And I'll continue to make some other videos. But like I said, please reach out if you have any thoughts, questions, or if you learn anything new on the cases. Send it my way and we can talk about it. Yeah, knives are quiet, and it's definitely a more up close and personal, right, HK? Yes, Angel, please join. Sounds good, Bridget. I'll keep an eye out. Yeah, it's fun to hang out. I mean, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight, and just share some insights into the case, because I know not everybody had heard about this one and the possible connections there. So very interesting. And the thing that I do like about talking about this is we have a legit solid connection here happening. This is it's going through the legal system, so we know it's real, right? So we're not just kind of chasing rumors here. I prefer to talk about, the real, the real evidence, and I'll speculate on that all day long. But I do like to try to chase that a little more than the rumors. Angel, welcome to the precinct. New member, Angel. Overprotected, thank you again for the $10. I appreciate that. Yep, next thing, the police were at the door. So Angel, when you become a member, you get a logo. You see it there next to your name. The longer you're a member, it changes. So you'll see some others there. You see Bradley there. He's got the purple logo. He's been around for a bit. He's kind of high ranking in the precinct here. But we'll definitely be doing more members. I have so many ideas here. I'm going to try to just really commit to the channel here and create as much content as I can, and do more of these lives with everybody, because this is a lot of fun, and I enjoy chatting with everyone. All right, everybody, have a good night. I will talk to you all very soon. Keep an eye out for my next video. I'll be working on that tomorrow, and I'll see you then.